بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we will be having this short session discussing Imamah to Marja'iyah, the transition of Imamah to Marja'iyah. And I would like to begin by thanking the Ahlul Bayt Union for having this initiative and suggesting this topic. This is a very important topic. I think it's very important for us to be more familiar with our history and know why we practice what we practice and why we are here where we are right now in the system of Marja'iyah and following Marja'iyah. Because when there's ignorance, when people don't know how things came to where they are right now, sometimes it becomes easy to just say, oh, I don't need to follow a marja. I don't need to have a scholar. I don't need to accept this and that. Usually you might see people who have no knowledge just saying these things because they either fell into a misconception or they don't know the authority that the Maraja have right now. So I think this is a very important topic to discuss, and inshallah we will begin that. Of course, as an intro, before we begin talking about the transition from Imamah to Marja'iyah, we need to first of all understand is that when we say we transition from Imamah to Marja'iyah, does this mean that we are not following an Imam right now? Because maybe some people, they might get the impression that when you switch from Imamah to Marja'iyah, that means there's no more Imam is not involved, and you are only following the Maraja. And this is not true. We believe that the process of following the Marja requires the Imam. And our Maraja today, the authority that they have, all of the authority that they have, the reason why we follow them, the reason why we respect them, the reason why we love them is because they are representatives. They are general representatives of the Imam, and their job is not to bring something new. Their job is to bring us closer to that which the Imam, alayhi salam, the Imams of the Ahl Bayt, that which they were trying to deliver to us. So the marja is dependent on the Imam. Today I find some people, they say, oh, only if this marja makes this halal, only if this marja makes this haram, only if this marja declares Eid tomorrow, for example. The marja is confined. The marja is bringing to us the law based on the hadith of the Imam and the words of God in the Quran and the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we need to understand that the Maraja do not make up their own rules, and the Maraja are still connected with the Imam. So when we say transition from Imamah to Marja'iyah, we are still living in a time of Imam, and we are living during the time of the Ghaibah, and all of the authority that the Maraja have, that is directly from the Imams. Furthermore, when we say transition from Imamah to Marja'iyah, that means some people, they have the idea that Marja'iyah started after the Ghaibat al-Sughra, for example. Marja'iyah started after the death of the Imams and after the Ghaibah of Imam Al-Mahdi. That's when the system of Marja'iyah came to rise. However, what we will try to share and understand, and we will discover that the system of Marja'iyah existed during the times of the Imams. Because what is Marja'? What is Marja'iyah and what is Taqleed? Marja' is the one who you refer to. Now, doesn't mean you have to refer to this person after the death of the Imam or after the Imam is gone. There were circumstances and there were cases during the life of the Imams, where the Imams, they would refer Shia, for example, the Shia of Kufa, the Shia of this particular city, to one particular scholar, one particular student of theirs. This is a type of marja', meaning marja' means someone who you return to, someone who you refer to. So this could apply during the life of the Imam, with the authority of the Imam, or this could apply after the Imam. So this is one. Marja' means the one who you refer to. Second, taqleed. What does taqleed mean? Taqleed means to emulate, to follow. And this would apply sometimes during the lives of the Imams. They would tell their companions, you take your religion and you follow this person. And and after the Imam as well, you have the general representative and you have the specific representative. Now, when it comes to taqleed, we have several types of narrations. One narration sees it that it is acceptable. One group of narrations, they see it that it's acceptable. And another group, they see it that it is not acceptable and it is not allowed. So which emulation is allowed, which taqleed is allowed, and which taqleed is not allowed? The taqleed that is not allowed is the taqleed when it comes to your beliefs. The taqleed that comes, the emulation that comes to your belief in the Day of Judgment, belief in God, belief in the prophethood of Rasulullah, belief in the Imams. This is something that you cannot do taqleed in. Why? Because you need to have conviction. I can't say I believe in God because this marja' believes in God. I believe in God because I do taqleed. I follow my parents. I follow my friends. I follow the scholar because they believe in God. No, you have to believe in God because you are convinced that there is a God and you are worshiping Allah. You believe in the Day of Judgment. You believe in the usul ad-din, the foundations and the theology. You cannot do taqleed in that. You could only do taqleed, the emulation that is acceptable is the taqleed when it comes to the jurisprudential laws, when it comes to the ahkam al-Shar'iyah, for example, the laws of prayer, the laws of zakat, the laws of hajj, the laws of khums, the laws of jihad, the laws of amr bil ma'ruf, nahi al munkar, som, all of these furu' ad-din, because we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligations upon us. So someone might say, no, I don't want to do taqleed. I don't want to follow anyone. Do I have the right to not follow anyone? Yes, you have the right. In fact, you have three options. One, the first option, you don't want to follow a marja'. There are some people, they say, I don't like the marja'. I don't want this and I don't want. Okay, you don't want to follow a marja'? You go become a scholar yourself. You go become a mujtahid. Go and study for 30 years in the hawza. Become a mujtahid. Then you will be able to derive laws on your own. But now that you're not a scholar, you have not studied, can you derive laws on your own without having knowledge, without having read the hadith of the Imams, without having read and understood the requirements of bringing laws together? You can't. So your first option is to become a scholar. The second option is to become a scholar. And when I say become a scholar, I mean become a mujtahid. Mujtahid that is agreed upon by other scholars. They come and they say this person is a mujtahid, not someone who goes and studies for 2 years in the hawza and they come and they say I'm a mujtahid. This is not sufficient. Second, you cannot become a mujtahid. Then your second option, if you don't want to emulate, you don't want to do taqleed, is that you have to take the path of precaution. What does precaution mean? Precaution means that you always have to try to avoid the haram. You always have to try to do that which you don't fall in going against the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for example, one marja' says tomorrow is Eid, another marja' says tomorrow is Shahr Ramadan. If you were doing taqleed, you follow whichever one and that's it. You've done taqleed. And taqleed, it's called qilada, meaning you're putting the necklace on someone else, meaning you're kind of throwing the responsibility on someone else. So you're not doing taqleed. And if you're not a scholar, you don't know the laws, you don't know the system, you don't know how to derive the laws. You could do precaution, ihtiyat. So what would you do in the case of ihtiyat? When someone says, the one marja' says tomorrow is Eid, the next marja' says tomorrow is Ramadan. How would you do ihtiyat? Someone might say, I travel. Well, you need to know how to travel and when to travel. Because if I woke up in my city, in my town, and the sun rose, the sun already came up, now I have to make an intention. If it's Ramadan, I have to make the intention that it's Ramadan and I'm fasting. And if it's not Ramadan, I have to not intend on fasting. So I need to know what to do before the sun rises. This is why the one who does ihtiyat, they need to have some sort of background knowledge. And in this scenario, you would have to travel before the sun rises, so that when the sun rises, you are not in your city, you're not in town, you're considered a traveler, so that if it were to be wajib upon you, then you're traveling. There's no fasting upon you. And you're not declaring it a Eid because you're also traveling. So this is an intro that I want to give. Now, as we mentioned, we're saying that there's a transition from Imamah to Marja'iyah. However, did this transition just happen after the Prophet and after the Imams? We say no. In fact, the Prophet and the Quran and the Imams, they set the foundations for Marja'iyah, meaning referring to someone else other than the Imam. Of course, the first marja' when it comes to faith, when it comes to religion, is Rasulullah and the Imams of the Ahl Bayt. But now when we say Marja'iyah, we mean returning and referring to someone who's a scholar other than the Prophets and the Prophet and the Ahl Bayt. There are some verses in the Quran. One verse, Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 7, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those who have knowledge if you don't know. And this is a reason-based argument, a logical argument. If I don't know, if I don't have knowledge, I have to go and seek knowledge from those who have knowledge. This comes to anything. If I, for example, I have to go to a doctor, I need to go, I have a medical problem, I have to go and refer to a doctor. I have to go and refer to someone who has knowledge. If I want to build a house, I need to go to an engineer. I need to go to the experts. And the same goes with matters of faith. Another more clear verse that is used as a proof for taqleed and ijtihad and seeking knowledge and the hujjah and the authority of the scholar is this verse. Surah At-Tawbah, verse 122. وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفِرُوا كَافَّةً فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين ولينذروا قومهم إذا رجعوا إليهم لعلهم يحذرون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that not everyone, this was once the Prophet migrated to Medina, now you have tribes and areas and towns and villages around Medina where they are converting to the religion of Islam. Now, what's the expectation of these people if they want to learn their ahkam, how to pray, how to give zakat, how to go to hajj, how to do everything? Should they all come and leave their homes, leave their responsibilities, and come and live with the Prophet? Of course, that doesn't make sense. People they have their own lives. Islam is a universal religion. It's not a religion where you have to leave your life and come and live next to the Prophet or live next to the Imam. So the Quran says, وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفِرُوا كَافَّةً. Not all of the believers could, it is not necessary for the believers to march forth all at once, meaning all of you come and be around the Prophet. فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ. Only a party from each group should march forth, leaving the rest to gain religious knowledge, then enlighten their people when they return to them. So let each community send someone. This person goes and learns the ahkam, learns the religious knowledge, and then they go back to their people and they teach them. So what does this mean? This means that first of all, it's wajib kifa'i upon a group of people in each community to seek knowledge. Just like you need to have a doctor, just like you need to have a baker, just like you need to have architects, just like you need to have these necessary resources and resourceful people in the community, you need to have ulama in the community. You need to have scholars in the community that will educate people. So the Quran says, let a group come, let them seek knowledge, and then they go back to their people and they educate their people. So what does this mean? This means this is establishing the system of taqleed and marja'iyah, meaning that now you have a group of people who have the authority who are required to learn, and then once they go back to their people, they have the religious authority where people have to listen to them. People have to take their words because they are those who have knowledge. They are those who are maraja', meaning you refer to them in terms of your religion and religious knowledge. Now, we also have, in addition to the verses in the Quran, we have ahadith, we have narrations from the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt. And a lot of people, they have the idea that these narrations started during the time of Imam Al-Askari, Imam Al-Hadi. No, they started early on. Imam Al-Sadiq, Imam Al-Baqir, Imam Al-Rida. these imams, they would encourage and they would assign and appoint certain individuals from their companions to be maraja' within their own community, within their own society. So for example, Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he tells one of his companions, Aban ibn Taghlib. Aban ibn Taghlib, this man, he has narrated over 30,000 hadith from Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he tells him, Ijlus في مسجد المدينة وفد الناس فإني أحب أن أرى في شيعتي مثلك. He says, sit in the masjid of the Medina, the masjid of the city, and give fatwa to people. Tell people their halal and their haram. Tell people, teach people their rulings. فإني أحب, because I love to see from my أحب أن أرى في شيعتي مثلك. I love to see from my Shia members like you, individuals who not just sit and give fatwa, not just sit and give knowledge. No, they have actually spent time. They've dedicated years. They've dedicated hours and a lifetime to pursue knowledge, to seek knowledge. Then the Imam says, now you could go and deliver that knowledge. Of course, we shouldn't confuse this verse or this narration that I should just sit and give fatwa. No, the Imam is talking to this person, Aban ibn Taghlib, this man who spent time learning and asking questions from the Imam. There are some people, they sit with scholars and they ask silly questions. They start talking about politics, for example. They start talking about other things that are silly and they don't make sense. This man, he used to sit with the Imam and he used to ask him, okay, this is halal, this is haram, why? And explain to me, what is the reasoning? And we will explain further how the Imams alayhim salam, they didn't just give the rules, but they would actually give the system of deriving a law. Another hadith, Imam Al-Rida alayhi salam, he tells one of his companions, لعبد العزيز المهتدي عندما سأله عبد العزيز المهتدي, he asks the Imam, he tells him, إني لا ألقاك في كل وقت فممن أخذ معالم ديني. He tells the Imam, he tells Imam Al-Rida, I don't see you all the time. I don't have access to you all the time. Some of these companions, they would only see the Imams during the Hajj, for example, or then when they go to Medina. So then he tells him, who should I take my religion from? The Imam tells him, خذ عن يونس بن عبد الرحمن. Take your religion from Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman, meaning go, he is the marja'. He is the one who you should refer to. Refer to him, Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman, he is thiqa. He is someone who I trust. And then another companion, he asks him, أَفَ يُونُس ibn Abdul Rahman ثِقَةٌ أَأْخُذُ مِنْهُ مَعَالِمَ دِينِي. Is Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman thiqa, that I trust? The Imam says, yes, Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman is trusted. Another companion of Imam Al-Rida, he tells لعلي ibn al-Musayyab al-Hamadani, he tells him, شقتي بعيدة. The man, he tells the Imam, I live very far. ولست أصل إليك في كل وقت فممن أخذ معالم ديني. He says, I can't reach you all the time. You know, at that time, they didn't have internet. They didn't have the ability to communicate the way that we have right now. So he tells him, how should I take my religion? Who should I take it from? The Imam alayhi salam, he tells him, من زكريا ابن آدم القمي المأمون على الدين والدنيا. He tells him, go and take your religion from Zakaria ibn Adam. Zakaria ibn Adam was one of the companions of the Imam. He's buried in Qom. He tells him, go and take your religion from Zakaria ibn Adam al-Qummi, al-ma'mun ala ad-din wa ad-dunya. I trust him with the matters of dunya and the matters of religion. So this is some hadith. Furthermore, we see that the Imams, they didn't just tell their companions, go and take your religion from these people. They have memorized hadith and go listen to the hadith from them. The Imams, they actually empowered their students, those who were reliable and students who they saw that they were worthy, they actually empowered them to issue judgments, for example. So for example, in this hadith, ففي رواية أبي خديجة سالم بن مكرم الجمال قال أبو عبد الله جعفر بن محمد الصادق, Imam Sadiq, he tells his companions, إياكم أن يحاكم بعضكم بعضا إلى أهل الجور. He says, he forbade his companions from going to judges that are not ruling by the system that the Imam has taught them. There were judges that would rule based on their own reasoning. They would not follow the ways of the Quran and the Sunnah and the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, إِيَّاكُمْ أن يحاكم بعضكم بعضا إلى أهل الجور ولكن انظروا إلى رجل منكم يعلم شيئا من قضايانا فاجعلوه بينكم فإني قد جعلته قاضيا. He says, if you, for example, you are Shia, you are companions of the Imams, you have a dispute over an issue, a business matter, whatever it is, don't go to someone who is not from the followers of the Ahlul Bayt. Go to someone, انظروا إلى رجل منكم يعلم شيئا من قضايانا. Go to the one who has the most knowledge from the Ahlul Bayt and the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt. Make this person be your judge. فإني قد جعلته قاضيا. Because I have appointed that person to be the judge. So that means the Imam is empowering these individuals, the Maraja'. There were Maraja'. Right now, when you think of Maraja', you think of Marja'iyah after the Imam. But these were Maraja' that were empowered during the life of the Imam. First, another point, sometimes you go refer to two scholars during the life of the Imam. The Imam is living in Medina, for example, and these companions of Imam Sadiq, they're in Kufa. But they both have different views, different opinions regarding some matters. Does that happen? Yes, it happened. Does it happen right now? Yes, it happens right now. Some people now they say, why are Maraja? They have different views. There were people, there were students of the Imams who were living in Kufa, just, hundreds of kilometers away from the Imam, and they would have different views. Having different views is something that is normal. But then the Imams would give a system, they would give a way on how to deal with the differences. So in a hadith that is accepted, داود بن الحسين عن أبي عبد الله الصادق في رجلين اتفقا على عدلين جعلاهما بينهما في حكم ووقع بينهما فيه خلاف فرضيا بالعدلين فاختلف العدلان بينهما. So then they brought two people and they wanted to seek judgment to two people, but then there was a dispute. So they tell him, when there's a dispute between two people, who should we go to? The Imam says, ينظر إلى أفقههما. You go to the one who has the most fiqh, meaning the one who has the most knowledge. وأعلمهما, the one who understands the laws of jurisprudence and the one who has the general knowledge. بأحاديثنا, in our ahadith. وأورعهما, the one who has wara', the one who has fear of God. فينفذ حكمه ولا يلتفت إلى الآخر. And the law of the one who is the most knowledgeable, that is the one that is accepted and taken, and the law of the other is not taken. These type of narrations are the narrations that today scholars they refer to when they say you have to follow the one who you believe is the most knowledgeable, the a'lamiyah. So this is also a very important matter. Imam Al-Hasan Al-Askari, this hadith that we have all probably heard of, the Imam alayhi salam, he tells his companions, فَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاءِ صَائِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ. As for the fuqaha, not every faqih, not every knowledgeable person. This person has to be صَائِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ. They have to control their own desires. حَافِظًا لِدِينِهِ. They have to protect their faith. مُخَالِفًا عَلَى هَوَاهِ. They go against their desires. مُطِيعًا لِأَمْرِ مَوْلَاهِ. They obey the commands of their Mawla, Allah. فَلِلْعَوَامِ أَنْ يُقَلِّدُوهِ. The awam, the laymen, they have the authority to follow this person. They have the authority. The Imam is telling you, you could follow this person who has these qualities. And then the Imam makes it clear, وَذَلِكَ لَا يَكُونَ إِلَّا بَعْض فُقَهَاءِ الشِّيعَةِ لَا كُلُّهُم. And this is only some of the fuqaha of the Shia, that these qualities and these attributes they apply to. صَائِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ حَافِظًا لِدِينِهِ مُخَالِفًا لِهَوَاهِ مُطِيعًا لِأَمْرِ مَوْلَاهِ. He says this is only some of the fuqaha. There are a lot of people who are geniuses, but are they qualified for us to follow them? Perhaps not, the Imam is saying. So here, this is a very important point. And we see how the development and the words of the Imams, they're empowering and they're giving authority to the Marja'iyah, the Maraja', meaning those who you refer back to. Now, furthermore, there were other steps that the Imams alayhim salam, they took to establish the system of Marja'iyah, to make it well-founded, to give authority, to empower these scholars, not in just giving them the knowledge, but rather they help them derive law. See, right now, someone comes and they tell you, give me the answer. I just give this person the answer. But then there's another time I see someone who's qualified, I see someone who's smart, I see someone who has interest. I don't just give them the answer. I show them how I reach the answer. Show me the equation. And this is what the Imams did in many cases. So of course there are certain laws, they don't have a equation. For example, why is the dog najis? Because God said so. But then there's other things. Why do we wash our face when it comes to the wudu? Why do we wipe part of our head, not the whole head? Here the Imam alayhi salam, he explains why. So the Imam alayhi salam, they taught their students the foundations of deriving Islamic law. So in a hadith, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, إِنَّمَا عَلَيْنَا أَن نَلْقِي إِلَيْكُمُ الْأُصُولِ وَعَلَيْكُمْ أَن تُفَرِّعُوا. He says, we lay down the foundation. For example, the Imam says, كُلُّ مُسْكِرْ حَرَامٌ. Every intoxicant is haram. Now, you apply it to what is an intoxicant. The Imam, they come and they give the general rules. For example, Abu al-Hasan al-Awwal, perhaps Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, he says, إِذَا شَكَكْتْ فَابْنِ عَلَى الْيَقِينِ قَالَ قُلْتْ هَذَا أَصْلٌ قَالَ نَعَمْ. The Imam, he lays down a rule. And this rule, today we refer to it as the law of istishab. Do not negate certainty with doubt. Meaning if you have certainty and you have doubt, dhan, yaqeen and dhan. Yaqeen, the certainty, it weighs more than the doubt. So you ignore the doubt when you have certainty. I left the house, I had wudu. Now I think, did I lose my wudu or did I not lose my wudu? I had certainty that I had wudu and I'm doubting that I lost my wudu. I go back to the certainty. This is called istishab. So this is a general rule. The Imams alayhim salam, they would empower and they would set these rules when they speak to their students. The Imams alayhim salam, they insisted on their companions in the development of Marja'iyah and the development of equipping these scholars to become leaders later on, not just students. They tell them you have to contemplate the hadith. قال حديث تدريه خير من ألف حديث ترويه. One hadith that you truly understand and you truly contemplate and you truly understand, this is better than 1,000 narrations that you just memorize like a parrot. Today there are people, they have the Quran memorized like a parrot. There are people, they have hadith memorized like a parrot, but they don't understand it. The Imam is telling their students, contemplate, think about these hadith. And he says, وَلَا يَكُنَ الرَّجُلْ مِنْكُمْ فَقِيهًا حَتَّى يَعْرُفْ مَعَارِيض كَلَامِنَا. The person is not going to become a faqih until they actually know and understand the hadith of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Another ruling, sometimes people, the students, they would come to the Imam and they would say, I heard one hadith and I heard another hadith and they kind of contradict one another. So what am I supposed to do? So the Imam alayhi salam and the Imams, they would give them a ruling. For example, take the hadith of the one who is thiqah, the one who is a Shi'i, the one who's more believer, the one who's more accurate. The Imam lays down a foundation. He keeps telling him, okay, what if this, what if this, what if that? He tells him one condition, for example, see the hadith that goes against the main opinion, the main view of the mainstream Muslims. Because sometimes the Imam would be in a state of taqiyya. He would have to say something that pleases the rulers at the time. But even though that would not be the authentic form. For example, he's teaching someone how to do wudu. He teaches him how to do wudu in the Sunni way. Has this happened before? Is the Imam misleading people? No, the Imam is saving the life of this person. They say that one of the companions of the Imam writes to him a letter. He tells him, start doing wudu in this way, the non-Shi'i way. And then a while later, he tells him, now go back to the way you were. So someone might take this hadith and they say, look, the Imam is teaching you how to do wudu in the Sunni way. And this hadith says, this hadith shows us the Shi'i way. So one of the criteria, the Imam, he says, انظروا ما خالف العامة. See the hadith that goes against the general population. If all of the other criteria did not meet, then this is one of the ways. So this is ta'arud. Whenever there is basically the hadith are going against one another, the Imams, they taught their companions how to deal with that. Another thing, is that the Imams alayhim salam, they would review the manuscripts. So the students of the Imam, they had books. They had books that they would write down. They had notebooks. And this is also a very important point. A lot of people right now, they sit in lectures and they just sit and they're just watching. The Imams, when their students, they would sit, they would tell them, uktubu, write down everything that I say. Because if you don't write down, you will forget. And this is why Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, all of his students, he had thousands of students, they would all write down. And then there were known books, manuscripts, and notebooks by the name of Al-Usul Al-400, 400 asl, 400 notebooks, basically. And these students, they would write in different topics. For example, one of the companions of the Imam, his name is Hariz. He wrote a book on Salah. There were others. Imam Al-Askari alayhi salam, he goes to visit one of his companions who fell ill. One of the companions becomes sick. So he sees next to his bedside, there's a book. And this is a book by one of the companions of Imam Al-Sadiq and Imam Al-Baqir and the other Imams by the name of Yunus ibn Abd al-Rahman. The same one. Maybe not Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq and Imam al-Rida and the other Imams. The one who earlier we said, Yunus ibn Abd al-Rahman, thiqatun akhudhu minhu ma'alim dini. Imam al-Askari, he sees the notebook of Yunus ibn Abd al-Rahman. فَنَظَرَ فِيهِ وَتَصَفَّحَهُ. He started going through page after page. ثُمَّ قال هَذَا دِينِي وَدِينُ آبَائِي وَهُوَ الْحَقِّ. This is the religion of my faith. This is my faith and the faith and the way of my forefathers. And this is the truth. So the Imams, they would review manuscripts. Someone might say, okay, there was a companion of Imam Sadiq, he mentioned this in a hadith, and how do we know if it's the truth? Because the Imams, they kept going over the manuscripts until the time of the Ghaybat al-Sughra and the important books of hadith like Al-Kulayni, من لا يحضره الكافي by Al-Kulayni, من لا يحضره الفقيه. They were written in that era, so there wasn't a very long period where many ahadith could get lost. This is one thing that the Imams alayhim salam did. Now we talked about how the Imams gave authority to their companions. What about the historical development? What were the events in history that happened that brought us to Marja'iyah right now? So, as we mentioned, Marja'iyah during the time of the Imams existed, and the close companions of the Imams, they became the representatives of the Imams, because as time was progressing, Bani Umayyah and then Bani Abbas, it became very difficult for the Imams to go out in public and speak to people. Imam Al-Qazwini alayhi salam, he was imprisoned. Imam Al-Rida, he was sent all the way to Khurasan. And when he was in Medina, there was a lot of authority. His house was being monitored. Imam Al-Jawad, he lived a very young life, and he was in Baghdad, going back and forth, and they would imprison him under house arrest. Imam Al-Hadi, they sent him to Samarra. Imam Al-Askari to Samarra. Imam Al-Askari, he tells his companions, when you see me in the street, don't even say salam to me, because I'm afraid that your life is going to be in danger. So the Imams, they started setting up the system of wakala, the system of directly appointed representatives. Wakil, representative of the Imam. Each Imam had an entrusted representative, and the Shia, they would write a letter to that wakil. They would write a letter to that khadim. Maybe this person is a servant in the house, but he was the one who was the connection between the Imam and the general population. They would write letters, they would ask questions, and the Imam would speak to them through that person. So for example, there were known wakala of the Imams. Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salam, he had a wakil, Sayyid Abdul Azim Al-Hasani. He's a Sayyid, he's from the descendants of Imam Al-Hasan, Abdul Azim. He's buried in Shahri-Ray, south of Tehran. Uthman ibn Sa'id. Uthman ibn Sa'id was the first deputy of Imam Al-Mahdi during the Ghaybat al-Sughra. He was a servant and supporter of Imam Al-Hadi and then Imam Al-Askari, and then he became the first of the Sufara of Imam Al-Mahdi. Ibrahim ibn Mahziyar. These are all individuals who were representatives of the Imam. And the persecution of the Shia, see, throughout history, the Shias were persecuted. And that led to populations of the Shia going to cities, going to places where they could live freely. So for example, Bani al-Abbas, they were persecuting in Baghdad and they were persecuting in Kufa. So you have a significant population. They move all the way from Kufa, they move to Qom. And that's how you have the Ash'aris. The Ash'aris, they migrated from Kufa. Initially, they were in Yemen. Then they become Shia of the Ahl al-Bayt. They live in Kufa from Yemen. Now that they're living in Kufa, because of the persecution, because of the difficulty, they migrate all the way to Qom. And one of the Maraja of the Shia during the time of Imam al-Askari and during the times of the Imams was a scholar by the name of Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Isa al-Ash'ari. He was a marja', a companion of Imam al-Hadi and al-Askari. Another scholar was Ali ibn Babawayh al-Qummi, the father of Shaykh al-Saduq. The father of Shaykh al-Saduq, he used to have letters with the Imams. So they used to connect with the Imams. These were living in Qom and in Ray. So Imam al-Askari, he writes a letter, for example, to Ali ibn Babawayh al-Qummi. He tells him, "Alayka bis-sabr wa intidhar al-faraj." Be patient and wait for the faraj. فإن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال أفضل أعمال أمتي انتظار الفرج. The best deeds of my ummah is to wait and actively wait for the faraj of the Imam. ولا تزال شيعتنا في حزن حتى يظهر ولدي الذي بشر به النبي صلى الله عليه وآله يملأ الأرض قسطا وعدلا كما ملئت ظلما وجورا. He says there's going to be suffering until my son rises, the one who the Prophet says about him, he will fill the earth with justice after it has been filled with oppression. فاصبر يا شيخي, be patient, O Shaykh, يا أبا الحسن, فإن الأرض لله يورثها من يشاء من عباده والعاقبة للمتقين. Because the earth belongs to God, and at the end of time, justice will be revealed and established. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكَ وَعَلَى جَمِيعِ شِيعَتِنَا. And peace be upon you and all of our Shia. وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِهِ. We have many of these letters that the Imams, they used to have correspondence with their companions. So these are some of the historical developments. Why were Shias going to other cities and Qom and other places? Because they were going due to persecution, and they eventually become maraja', they eventually become representatives of the Imam. Now, during the life of the Imam, Marja'iyah had its one form. During the occultation, so as we explained, if it should be clear to all of those who are listening, that Marja'iyah began during the life of the Imams. They were those who were the direct representative of the Imam. The Imam tells Abdul Azim al-Hasani, you are my representative. He tells this person, you are my representative, and he's given him authority. Now, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, he becomes an Imam. He has a son. 5 years later, year 260 after Hijrah, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, he is poisoned and he passes away in Samarra. Imam al-Askari, of course, he had appointed Imam Al-Mahdi to be the Imam after him, and he wrote letters to many of his companions. He tells them, the Imam after me, your Hujjah after me is my son Al-Mahdi. And some of them, they came and they saw him. Some of them, he wrote them letters, and he tells them. Now, once Imam Al-Askari alayhi salam passes away, you see that now the system of Marja'iyah takes a new form. Because before, the Marja' people, they know the Marja' is around, but now the Marja' is hidden from the eyes. Before, the Marja' was, the Imam was hidden from the eyes. For example, during the time of Imam Al-Qazwini, he was hidden from the eyes. Imam Al-Rida, he was far. But this time, it's a little bit different. Now, there's a form of ghaiba, where before, you have some people, they have access to the Imams. But now, it's very little, very limited access. And although we have some narrations that suggest that there were other Shias that were connected with the Imams The Imams would write letters for them, for example. They would speak with them. But there were directly appointed deputies, sufara of Imam Al-Mahdi. And by the way, the day Imam Al-Askari alayhi salam passes away, Imam Al-Mahdi, he leads the prayer and he goes into the occultation. When he goes into the occultation, before going into the occultation, he sees a group of people that have come from Qom. A group of people, they've come from Qom, they have their zakat, and they're trying to find out where's the Imam. Ja'far, the uncle of Imam Al-Mahdi, the brother of Imam Al-Askari, he says, come to me. They ask him a few questions. They see that he has no knowledge. Then they feel confused. They feel lost. They go to a house and they see Imam Al-Mahdi. He tells them, ilayya, come to me, and he calls them by their names. That was the sign that they realized he is the Imam. Then he tells them, from now on, the ghaiba is going to begin. You don't come to me, you don't give the zakat to me, you don't give your khums to me, you give it to Uthman ibn Sa'id. Uthman ibn Sa'id, we mentioned earlier, he was the khadim, the servant of Imam Al-Hadi, and then the helper and representative of Imam Al-Askari. And then also, he becomes the first of the sufara of Imam Al-Mahdi al-Muntadhar. And he tells them, from now on, you don't come to Samarra. Now you go to Baghdad. And in fact, the four deputies of Imam Al-Mahdi, the four sufara, they all lived and died in Baghdad. Why Baghdad? Baghdad was the capital of the empire, the Muslim empire at the time. And it was the hub, it was a place of gathering. And there was a large Shia population in Baghdad, from Kufa, from other places. So they were all living in Baghdad. So the first was Uthman ibn Sa'id. And people, they would write letters to Uthman ibn Sa'id, and he would give it to the Imam, he would deliver it to the Imam, and the Imam would write him a letter, and Uthman ibn Sa'id would deliver it to the people. Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Amri, he is the deputy and the Safir of the Imam, the ambassador of the Imam, for 5 years. 5 years before he dies, at 5 years he dies, they ask him before his death, who has Imam Al-Mahdi appointed after you to be his representative? It was the son of Uthman ibn Sa'id, Muhammad ibn Uthman ibn Sa'id, Abu Ja'far. And he was the longest, for 40 years, Abu Ja'far, Muhammad ibn Uthman ibn Sa'id, he was the representative of Imam Al-Mahdi. And he also lived during the time of Imam Al-Askari. And he has many narrations that praise him. Muhammad ibn Uthman, he was for 40 years, people would go to him and they would seek knowledge, they would ask him questions. And for example, what are some of the contributions of these sufara? Dua al-iftitah, dua nudba, some of the questions. There were some matters that were not clear until the time of Imam Mahdi. New issues that came up, they would go to these individuals and they would give the hukum, they would give the Islamic law. So right now there are some scholars, they have like some of these new Islamic laws that emerged during the time of these sufara, and they've pointed them out. After Muhammad ibn Uthman, when Muhammad ibn Uthman was dying, he had a big group of companions, a big group of friends and companions who were all reliable individuals, but there were some who were closer to him. There were some who were really close to him. But then on his deathbed, they asked him, who is the leader after you? He said, Al-Husayn ibn Ruh al-Nawbakhti. And Husayn ibn Ruh he was close to Muhammad ibn Uthman, but he was not from the closest. And the hadith says that the one who was very close to Muhammad ibn Uthman, he was by his head while he was passing away, and Husayn ibn Ruh was by his feet. The one who was by the head, he asked him, who has the Imam appointed after you to be the representative of the Imam? Muhammad ibn Uthman, he says Husayn ibn Ruh. So right away, he was by his head, he goes and he switches places. He goes by his feet and he brings Husayn ibn Ruh to be by the head of Muhammad ibn Uthman. And Husayn ibn Ruh al-Nawbakhti, he is the representative of the Imam for 21 years. Now, after him, Ali ibn Muhammad al-Samari. Ali ibn Muhammad al-Samari. For 3 years, he is the representative of the Imam. And this was a very difficult era for the Shia because of the political climate. They started persecuting many of the Shias. And here, Ali ibn Muhammad al-Samari, he was 6 days before his death, he receives a letter from the Imam, from Imam Al-Mahdi. And the Imam is telling him, my condolences to you and to your companions because you're going to live for 6 more days. And after you, there's no direct representative. There is a niyab al-amma. There's no niyab al-khassa. There's no wakil khas. Meaning, the ummah is going to enter into the greater occultation, al-ghayb al-kubra, and you do not give wasiyah to anyone after you. So this man, Ali ibn Muhammad al-Samari, this letter was shared, and 6 days later, his companions, they gather, and they see that he's dying. They see that he's dying, and they ask him, who is the Imam after you? He says, لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ هُوَ بَالِغُهُ. The matter belongs to God, and that was the last word he uttered, and he passes away. لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ هُوَ بَالِغُهُ. He did not appoint anyone after. It was that day, in the year 329 Hijri, when Ali ibn Muhammad al-Samari passes away, that was when we officially entered into the greater occultation. And then you see Marja'iyah takes a new form. So you're following along the transition of Marja'iyah and how it transferred from during the lives of the Imams, they were just narrators of hadith. Then it becomes the deputies during the 4 deputies during the Ghaybat al-Sughra. Now you move on to the Ghaybat al-Kubra. So during Ghaybat al-Sughra, you had directly appointed representatives. And even before the Ghaybat al-Sughra, for example, Imam Sadiq, he says to one of his companions, he tells him, you are my representative. He's directly appointed him. He is Na'ib Khas, meaning he is directly appointed. Today, our Maraja, are they directly appointed by the Imam? No. None of our Maraja are directly appointed. And the hadith of the Imam, he tells Ali ibn Muhammad al-Samari, he says, there's no niyaba khassa. And whoever claims to be na'ib khas, meaning I was appointed by the Imam, then this person is a liar and you should not accept the word of this person. So now you have wakil am, our maraja right now. May Allah bless them. May Allah prolong their lives. They are not directly appointed by the Imam. They are general representatives. The criteria of leadership, the hadith of Imam Al-Askari, فَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْعُلَمَاءِ صَائِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ مُحَافِظًا لَدِينِهِ مُخَالِفًا لِهَوَاهِ. These apply to them. فَالْعَوَامَ أَنْ يُقَلِّدُوهُ. But they were not, these people, they were not directly appointed by the Imam. And this is something that we have to keep in mind. The other point is that narrations of hadith, so now, after the minor occultation ended, you have the next phase. So you have, during the ghaiba, the nuwab, the sufara, they do exactly what the Imam tells them to do. Okay, now they died and this period ended. Now you have the next period. For example, you have some scholars like Sheikh Al-Kulayni, who authored Al-Kafi. You have Sheikh Al-Saduq. These Al-Kulayni lived during the Ghaybat al-Sughra, and after it, there were scholars who lived during and after Ghaybat al-Sughra. They were also maraja. But what kind of maraja? Today, when I think of a marja, I think of the marja tells me fast this day, do this is halal, this is haram. The Marja'iyah, after and during the time of Ghaybat al-Sughra and after, they were actually narrators of hadith. So for example, Kulayni, he wrote his book Al-Kafi, which took him 20 years to compile. 20 years, over 16,000 ahadith. He traveled all over the Muslim world and he gathered these narrations. Al-Kafi, he was the first who wrote from the Kutub al-Arba'a, from the 4 main books. Al-Kulayni, his book, he wrote a book that compiles the aqa'id, meaning in usul al-Kafi, and and he also has Furu' al-Kafi, and he also has Rawdat al-Kafi. It's 3 sections. Usul al-Kafi focuses on the theology, on the foundations of faith. And then Furu' al-Kafi is Islamic law. And then Rawdat al-Kafi, that is du'as and some other issues. So he basically gathered all of these. This was his Risala Amaliyah. This was his book of laws that he was relying on, basically. It was his book of laws. So they didn't see at that time, like right now, if you open Al-Kafi, you're going to see a book of hadith. You're not going to see a book of laws. You're just going to see Qala Imam Sadiq, Al-Baqir, Imam Jawad. They said this. But at that time, because they were so close in time to the era of the Imams, they didn't see the need to come and give the law without stating the hadith of the Imam. They just come and state the hadith of the Imam, and people should understand it the way you understand it if you were to hear the hadith of the Imam. That's why Al-Qazwini, when he wrote Al-Kafi, he named it Al-Kafi, meaning this is enough. This is what you need. You read Al-Kafi and you will know the ahkam in terms of aqaid, in terms of fiqh, in terms of all of the laws that you need. This is sufficient for you. After Qazwini comes another scholar, Shaykh al-Saduq. Remember we said Shaykh al-Saduq's father lived during the time of the Imam. Shaykh al-Saduq, we have hadith that Shaykh al-Saduq was born because of the dua of Imam Al-Mahdi. So Shaykh al-Saduq, he wrote a book. He traveled, he was in Qom, and then he traveled to Ray, and then he traveled to Khurasan, Tus. And there he went to an area, Balkh, I believe, or one area, Nishapur. There, they asked him, the people of that town, they tell him, give us a book of laws. There was a book that was authored by a doctor at that time. It said the name of that book was Man La Yahdarahu Tabib, meaning basically the WebMD, the book that you don't need a doctor, you just go and open this book and try to find solution to your problems and your health. So he wrote a book, named it Man La Yahdarahu Al-Faqih. This is, you don't need to have a faqih, you don't need to have a scholar. He compiled all of the narrations, but they were narrations, unlike Al-Kafi, which had aqaid and has so many other things. This one was just fiqh. Man la yahdarahu al-faqih. This was authored by Shaykh al-Saduq, and he compiled all of the narrations from the Imams of the Ahl Bayt. So these two books, and then you have 2 books, Al-Istisar wa Tahdhib by Shaykh al-Tusi. These become the Kutub al-Arba'a, the 4 main books of hadith, 4 main primary sources that we refer to today. These are the books of hadith that our scholars, our Maraja', they refer to today. So this was the transition. So you have during the time of the Imam, then you have these books, the books of hadith. Now, by the way, the books that we mentioned, the Usul al-Arba'mi'ah, remember we talked, there were 400 books that were written, the manuscripts that were written by the companions of the Imams. These, Al-Qazwini, he had access to them. Shaykh al-Saduq, he had access to them. They were notebooks that had a few hadith here, a few hadith there. But what Qazwini did, what Shaykh al-Saduq did, what later on Shaykh al-Mufid and Shaykh al-Tusi, what they did was, they just, instead of gathering a bunch of notebooks here and there, what they did is they gathered all of the authentic narrations and they put them in these books. And then now, Usul al-Arba'ah don't exist with us. Why? Because they were destroyed over time. Because scholars, they were destroyed. Baghdad was attacked. A main library during the time of Shaykh al-Tusi was burned by the Seljuks. They attacked Baghdad and they destroyed the chair and the office that Shaykh al-Tusi had, and they threw all of these books in the river. They say that the river turned black because of the ink. But the Shi'ism still thrived and survived. Why? Because you have scholars like al-Tusi and scholars like Al-Saduq and Al-Kulayni, they had already gathered all of the information from these Usul al-Arba'mi'ah, and they had put them in their books like Al-Kafi and Man La Yahdaruhu Al-Faqih and Istibsar and Tahdhib. So then now you have these books. You're at the stage of Kulayni, and then you have Sheikh Al-Saduq. Who comes after Sheikh Al-Saduq? His student was Sheikh Al-Mufid. Sheikh Al-Mufid was a great scholar, but now you have to keep in mind that now Sheikh Al-Mufid is living in a time where it's getting further and further away from the era of the Imams. So the Imams, the Ghaybat al-Sughra has ended, and time is progressing. There are new issues emerging. There are different, you have hadith that are contradicting. Some hadith probably don't make sense. There are some people you've discovered that these people are not truthful. They're liars, whatever it is. So now, during the time of Sheikh al-Mufid, you see the slow introduction of the role of the aql. Instead of just accepting Al-Kafi, just accepting Man La Yahdaruhu Al-Faqih as just a book, now you see the role of the intellect takes place. So the Shias, they were very careful in introducing the aql in a way that does not contradict with religion. Because what you see is many decades, many centuries earlier, the Sunni scholars, they had already introduced the aql. Why? Because they didn't have the Imams. They, after Rasulullah, that's it. They don't accept the Imams. So they had to, people like Abu Hanifa, for example, they had to resort to qiyas. They had to resort to analogical inference or deduction. Meaning, for example, in salah, you need to have wudu. Okay, then in sa'i, you need to have wudu as well. Just say you do a deduction, you use analogy. But Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was very careful to say, Inna deen Allah la yuqas bil uqul. You can't come and compare religion just because God says, for example, a lady has to, for example, he tells Abu Hanifa, you can't do qiyas. Why? Because you can't always compare laws. They're not, apples and oranges. You can't really compare them. So, for example, he comes and he tells him, a lady during the month of Ramadan, when she's on her period, she does not need to make up her salah, but she has to make up her fasting. But he asked him, what is more important, fasting or salah? Abu Hanifa, he says salah is more important. He says, then why does she have to make up the fasting, but she does not have to make up the salah? So Abu Hanifa, he stayed quiet. Imam tells him, because this is God said so. So you can't always use analogical reasoning and deduction. That's called qiyas. So here, Sheikh al-Mufid, he introduced the aql as a system to judge and for example, if a hadith, it's very clear that this hadith goes against the aql, then you would not accept this hadith. But not making up laws. So here, Sheikh al-Mufid, he started the system of usul al-fiqh, principles of Islamic jurisprudence. And here, scholars of the Hawza, when they go to the Hawza, one of the subjects that they study is usul al-fiqh, principles of Islamic jurisprudence. How am I going to derive laws, but I don't contradict the Quran, and I don't contradict for example, I don't start doing qiyas the way the non-Shia started doing qiyas. So you see, Sheikh al-Mufid, he began this, and you could see the development where Shia scholars, they not only they saw that relying on hadith by itself is problematic. So now you're introducing more of the aql. You're introducing a system to analyze, a system to verify, is this chain of narrations acceptable? Is this not? A system of checks and balances. And you have the study of Rijal and these other studies, they start emerging. After Sheikh al-Mufid comes his student, Sayyid al-Murtada. Sayyid al-Murtada, he also has a very important role. And then Sheikh al-Tusi. Once Sheikh al-Tusi comes, then you see there's a leap. And then after Sheikh al-Tusi, for about 200 years, that's it. Because he had done such a big change, that there's basically there's not that much change. So this is one major step, one major development when it comes to the taqleed and when it comes to ijtihad. Sheikh Al-Mufid has a book, At-Tadhkirah bi Usul al-Fiqh, a reminder in Usul al-Fiqh. This is one of the first books of Usul al-Fiqh, and you could tell it's very simple as if you compare it to the books right now. And then Sayyid al-Murtada, he comes and he authors a book by the name of Al-Dhari'ah. And then Sheikh al-Tusi, Addat al-Usul, and this was the greatest leap. He put a great role on the reasoning, the power of the aql. And today, the scholars of the Shia, they say that the hujjah, you have the Quran, the Sunnah, the aql, and the ijma' that includes the imam. So these are the proofs for the Shia. One of them is the aql. Now, of course, the aql can't derive laws on its own, but the aql should have a role. If you see a hadith that contradict one another, if you see something doesn't make sense, there should be a role for the aql. And Sheikh al-Tusi, we mentioned earlier, Al-Kulayni, he authored Al-Kafi, and Sheikh al-Saduq, he authored Man La Yahdharuhu al-Faqih. Sheikh al-Tusi, he authored Tahdhib al-Ahkam and Al-Istibsar, and these came to be known as the Kutub al-Arba'a, the four main books of hadith that we resort to and we rely on right now. Now, Sheikh al-Tusi, of course, just a brief, I mentioned earlier, he migrated from Tus, close to Khurasan, Mashhad. He migrated from Tus to Baghdad to be a student of Sheikh al-Mufid. And during the time of Sayyid al-Murtada, he lived in Baghdad. And then he was the scholar. He had a kursi, meaning he had a chair, a minbar. He used to teach. And the Shi'as, they used to recite Hayya ala khair al-amal and adhan. And there was a thriving community until Baghdad was sacked. And you see Shia genocide constantly taking place. And one of the greatest genocides that took place against the Shia was during the time of Sheikh al-Tusi, when Turghul Beyk of the Seljuk dynasty, he sacked Baghdad and he killed many of the scholars, burned the books, burned the library, threw the books in the river. And Sheikh al-Tusi, he survived. But when he survived, nothing was left and he was not given power, so he ended up migrating to Najaf. And that is where you see the start of the Hawza of Najaf. Now, of course, the Hawza of Najaf didn't really start, but Sheikh al-Tusi goes there, he teaches, and then when he dies, there were gaps. The Hawza switches to Hilla, the Hawza switches to Qom, it switches to other places, and then later on it starts going back to Najaf. So this is one point. Now, the development of ijtihad. We said that after Sheikh al-Tusi passes away, there was a around 200-year recession, lack of advancement after the death of Tusi. They saw that there was no need. That's it. Whatever Sheikh al-Tusi has done, they don't need to build upon it. There's no more role for aql, nothing, none of that. Whatever Sheikh al-Tusi has done. Why? Because his students, they really respected him. They didn't want to challenge him. Second, the political climate did not allow for freedom of expression. But then, after around 200 years, you have in Hilla, Iraq, the city of Hilla, you have Al-Muhaqqiq Al-Hilli, the author of Shara'i' al-Islam. He dies year 676 Hijri. You have later on his nephew, Allam Al-Hilli, who dies year 726 Hijri. You have in Lebanon, in Bint Jbail, in those areas, in Jabal Amil, you have in Jabal Amil area, that whole area, you have Al-Shahid Al-Awwal and Shahid Al-Thani. You have these scholars who are there, and Shahid Al-Thani, he was executed by the Ottoman Sultan. He wrote the book of Al-Lum'a Al-Dimashqiyya, the book of laws, and you see there's more development. And then 907 Hijri, the Safawi government comes to power. It doesn't say it in the slide. The Safawi government comes to power, and the Safawi government, they started promoting the scholars and they started giving them a role in the government. And for example, Allam al-Majlisi, his book Bihar al-Anwar was basically published by the Safawi government. They paid for it. They brought Al-Hurr Al-Amili, they brought scholars from South Lebanon and from Iraq and from areas, they brought them to Iran, they brought them to Qom, to Mashhad, to these cities, Isfahan, and they would have them and they would give them the power and the freedom to write. And this is where you see a period of thrive, the Shia, and in terms of advancement of knowledge, they were thriving. But then this also gave rise to the Akhbari movement. Akhbari movement from year 1030 Hijri to 1185. And what was the Akhbari movement? Akhbari movement was a group of Shia scholars that rebelled against the thought process of the status quo in terms of deriving Islamic law. They didn't agree with the role of the aql, the way that this hadith is accepted and this hadith is not accepted. They said, oh, we just look at these books, the books of hadith. No need for aql, no need for all these things. Just come and look at these ahadith that you have and accept them. And there were some who were very extreme when it comes to akhbar. Akhbari, meaning they just look at the akhbar, meaning the news or the transition of knowledge that came. Muhammad Amin al-Istirabadi, these are all scholars. Abdullah bin Saleh al-Ismahiji, al-Samahiji, wa Mirza Muhammad al-Akhbari. These were some of the akhbaris. And then you have a group of akhbaris, but they were not as, right now scholars, they don't look at them as that extreme. Sheikh Yusuf al-Bahrani, Sayyid Ni'matullah al-Jazairi, al-Mullah Muhsin Fayd al-Kashani, Muhammad Taqi al-Majlisi, Muhammad Tahir al-Qummi, wa Sheikh Hurr al-Amili. Of course, Sheikh Yusuf al-Bahrani, for example, he lived in Karbala. And in Karbala, you have a movement of Akhbari movement. He's buried in Karbala. Now, Sheikh Yusuf al-Bahrani lived during the time of Al-Wahid al-Bahbahani. On the other side, the Usuli scholars, so you have two groups. You have Akhbari scholars, they're giants in this field, and then you also have giants in the field of Usul, meaning they don't accept just hadith by itself. There's a systematic way of deriving laws, and they come and they lay down the rules. One of them was Al-Wahid al-Bahbahani. When Sheikh Yusuf al-Bahrani passed away in Karbala, even though he has a different opinion, he's an Akhbari and Sheikh Wahid al-Bahbahani is Usuli. Before his death, he asked that Sheikh Wahid al-Bahbahani leads prayer over his janazah. Sheikh Wahid al-Bahbahani. And then comes Sheikh al-Ansari, Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari. Right now, anyone who goes to the Hawza, they have to study the book of Rasail al-Makasib of Sheikh al-Ansari, Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari. He was one of the giants in terms of usul and basically destroying the Akhbari movement, destroying it in terms of logical reasoning and in their books and in their arguments and their letters, and basically wiping it out. Sheikh Ja'far Kashif al-Ghita. Sheikh Ja'far Kashif al-Ghita was also one of those scholars of the Usuli movement. Now, we are coming to the end of this slideshow. From the Usuli scholars, you have their students, and then it comes down to the contemporary scholars. So, for example, from the students of Sheikh al-Ansari, Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari, one of them was Sayyid Muhammad Kadhim Tabatabai al-Yazdi, the author of one of the book of laws by the name of Al-Urwatul Wuthqa. Urwatul Wuthqa, this book, it's a book of laws, just like any marja' has a book of laws. But this book, Al-Urwatul Wuthqa, right now, all of the Bahath Kharij, the scholars, the mujtahideen that teach Bahath Kharij, so it begins with, for example, the book of chapter of Tahara, Salah, Zakat, whatever, all these things. The scholars in their Bahath Kharij, they use, in terms of the fiqh, they resort to Al-Urwatul Wuthqa, they follow his way. They follow, for example, the first chapter is this. Okay, because it's in Urwatul Wuthqa, we're going to follow his book. So this is a very influential scholar. You have another very influential giant when it comes to usul, and the student of Sheikh al-Ansari, and this is Sheikh Muhammad Kadhim al-Khurasani, the author of Kifayat al-Usul, also one of the books that every student of the Hawza, in the higher levels of Hawza, they have to study al-Kifaya before going to Bahath Kharij. And the Bahath Kharij, that is the methodology of teaching usul, because you have Bahath Kharij in terms of Bahath Kharij means the scholar is basically deriving the law as they speak. They teach their students how they derive the law. They're not reading from any other book anymore. In the fiqh, they follow al-urwat al-wuthqa, and in the usul, they follow the system of kifayat al-usul, the curriculum of Kharij, the Kharij courses. Then you also have another scholar who was the teacher of Sayyid al-Khoi, Mirza Muhammad Hussein al-Na'ini, Sheikh Agha Diya al-Din al-Iraqi, and then Sheikh Muhammad Hussein al-Isfahani. These were three scholars. They focus a lot on philosophy and these subjects, these logical matters. They were the teachers of Sayyid al-Khoi. And then you also have contemporary scholars who in the last 100 years, Sayyid Muhsin al-Hakim, Sayyid Abu al-Hasan al-Asfahani, Sayyid al-Khoi, Sayyid Sistani. Of course, right now, most of the living Maraja, most of them, they are students and they follow the methodology of Sayyid al-Khoi. So Sayyid al-Khoi, he also had a huge impact on the way the thought process is right now, where a lot of the scholars right now, they just follow his methodology. No one has come and really revolutionized that. Every few decades or every few centuries, you have someone coming and revolutionizing. Remember, we talked about Sheikh al-Tusi. He came and that's it. For 200 years, everyone was just following him. And then later on, things changed. So right now, most of the scholars, they're following the methodology of Sayyid al-Khoi because he was the teacher of most of the current day living Maraja. This is one hawza in Najaf. You also have the hawza of Qom, which basically around 100 years ago or so, Sheikh Abdul Karim al-Ha'iri. So you had a group of Shias living there, but the hawza started by the scholar Sheikh Abdul Karim al-Ha'iri, who moved from Yazd. He moved to Najaf, then back to Iraq, then Qom, and he founded the hawza. So historically there was a hawza, but it died until Sheikh Abdul Karim al-Ha'iri, he comes and he revives it. He has passed away and he is buried in Qom. Some of the top figures of the hawza of Qom, they're buried in the shrine of Sayyidah Ma'suma right now. When you go, Sayyid Muhammad al-Hujjah, Sayyid Sadr al-Din al-Sadr, the father of Sayyid Musa al-Sadr, Sayyid Muhammad Taqi al-Khunsari, Sayyid al-Burujurdi, and then you also have Imam al-Khomeini. Imam al-Khomeini, who was also a student and a teacher in Qom and in Najaf. He is the student of Sheikh Abdul Karim al-Ha'iri and then Burujurdi. And from amongst his teachers were Shah Abadi, Sayyid Ali al-Qadhi. He lived in Najaf there, lived in exile until the 1979 revolution. And that also, after the revolution, you see that the Marja'iyah system also has a new form and it's growing in influence. Now we are living during the time of great Maraja, due to technology, due to basically communication, travel. Now you have internet. Now we are connected with the Maraja. Now a lot of people travel and they go and they see the Maraja. So this is just a brief and very quick rundown of the development of the Marja'iyah, all the way from the time of the Imamah all the way to where we are right now. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salam. Thank you so much for your very inspiring talk. MashaAllah, it was an absolute honor to hear you in person. Even though it's behind the screen, it's giving me flashbacks to COVID. I think the blessing of technology is the fact that we're able to connect people from so many different countries.
Yes,
and inshallah, everyone here benefited from the session. Sayyidina, we've got an influx of questions in the chat, on our Instagram DMs, on WhatsApp as well.
Okay.
I think for us to ensure that we're maintaining this session to go smoothly, if everyone who has a question types that question in the chat, or messages us on Instagram or sends a message to us on WhatsApp, inshallah, we can ask the Sayyid the question from here, inshallah. Sayyidina, the first question.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Sayyid, you have said that there were people who used to follow a marja in Kufa, whilst there was an imam present in Medina. So my question is, in today's world, if a person lives in London, is the person supposed to follow a marja that is also located in the UK, or would it be acceptable to follow a marja that lives in Iraq?
So the imam, when I say people would follow, for example, in Kufa, that doesn't mean they're not following the imam. They are basically, because the marja in Kufa would, the scholar in Kufa was closer to them, they have access to him. So here, because of technology right now, you have access to the ulama. They all have, most of them, for example, right now they have an English website. You have scholars that could give you their ahkam. So you have to follow the one who is the most knowledgeable. Follow the one who you believe is the most knowledgeable, and also someone who you could connect with as well. Yes.
Thank you so much, Habib Said. Next, we have a lot of questions, guys. So I do appreciate all of the questions we have. Inshallah, we're going to try and get through as many of them as possible. If your questions don't get answered, please do send us, and inshallah, we can try and forward them onto the Sayyid and potentially answer them on Instagram as well. The next question. Assalamu alaikum. It may be a broad question, but could you, Sayyid, please explain how we are to go about choosing a marja? There are so many different opinions regarding this, which often causes confusion for the youth. Thank you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and grant you paradise.
So this is a very important issue. At the end of the day, we explained the proofs of Marja'iyah and why you have to follow a marja. Here, your job is to follow the one who you believe is the most knowledgeable, the one who you could connect with. Maybe there's someone who's very knowledgeable, but I don't have access to this person. I could never connect with this person. So now there's a lot of maraja right now. Who am I supposed to follow? Scholars, they say you have to ask the experts, ask those who have studied in the Hawza. For example, there's scholars of the Hawza who are teaching Bahath Kharij, they're not maraja. There are scholars who have spent decades and many years in the Hawza. They know who has which skills, who has which capabilities. They could kind of know who is a leading figure in the Hawza. So if you ask two individuals that you trust and they're experts and they tell you you follow such and such, then you have the authority to follow that person. Now, the issue we have right now is that every marja, the known maraja, of course, the top, say like, for example, the top known maraja, you could find two people that you trust that would say, I believe this person is knowledgeable. So in this case, then you could follow whoever you want. Basically, whoever you believe is the most knowledgeable.
Thank you so much, Habib Said. Another question we've got from the chat. Would you be able to explain if the marja get the rulings from a hadith, etc., then why do a lot of maraja differ and have differences when they follow one source, the imams, and they have difference of opinions with each other?
So this goes back to the issue of whether I accept this person's hadith. Maybe, for example, there's a narrator. One marja sees that he's da'if, another marja weak, another marja accepts his hadith, one marja does not accept his hadith. So there's other things that come into play here. For example, we have narrations that, or maybe there's a hadith, it's authentic, okay? But then for the last 1,000 years, every scholar, they've been saying this is the ruling. It goes against that authentic hadith. So for example, we have a hadith that says you could pray at sunset. Okay? Ghurub al-Shams. But then there's something else which kind of makes the marja right now kind of have that fear of issuing the fatwa. What is it? That they've seen for the last hundreds of years, all the maraja, they said you have to wait 15 minutes. You have to wait until Maghrib. So this marja says, I see this hadith, but maybe why are they all saying the same thing? And they're not individuals who are playing around. This is the deen, this is the religion of God. They're pious people. Why are they all saying the same thing? So here, some scholars, they say, is the shuhra, meaning a rule that has become so popular with so many maraja. Is that hujjah upon me? Is that proof upon me, or is that not proof upon me? This is an issue of usul. Some scholars, they say al-hujjah, al-shuhra is hujjah. Other scholars, they say no, it's not hujjah. As long as I have a hadith that says you could fast or you could pray maghrib at sunset, then that is sufficient for you. And you have there's other systems, other things that come into play.
Thank you, Sayyid. We've got an anonymous question on Instagram. That question is...
Was this on Instagram?
No, there's another question on Instagram, which is anonymous.
Okay.
The question is, why should I follow a fallible being when the Imam is infallible?
So who am I supposed to follow? I'm following the person who I believe. The hadith of Imam Hassan al-Askari is very clear. He says you have to follow the one who does not sin, the one who guards themselves, or the one who's the most knowledgeable, the one who... There's a lot of criteria. So the maraja, at the end of the day, everyone is fallible other than the maraja. But we have to follow someone who's an expert. Even right now, when I go to the doctor, do I have 100% guarantee that this doctor is going to save my life? I don't. But I go to the one who I believe is the best choice that I have.
There's a question in the chat, Sayyid, and the question is, what if you're stuck in between two maraja and you're not sure which one is more knowledgeable? How do you go about choosing which marja?
So ask the experts here. And if you have two experts that you trust saying this person is more knowledgeable, and then two experts saying this person is more knowledgeable, then here you could choose whichever one you want.
There's another question, and that question is, what is the take of the Sayyid on the letter written by Imam Mahdi on referring to the narrators of their traditions? I have met someone who has used this part of the letter to prove that taking taqleed of marjas is bid'ah, and that the only taqleed we should take is of Imam Mahdi himself.
Can you repeat the first part? What is the hadith?
What is the take of the Sayyid on the letter written by Imam Al-Mahdi on referring to the narrators of their traditions? I have met someone who has used this part of the letter to prove that taking taqleed of marjas is bid'ah.
No, this is not bid'ah. This is common sense. It's logic. You resort to the hadith of the imams, and you have to resort to the reliable. How can you go to the hadith of Imam Al-Mahdi independently? Do we have right now I say, okay, I want the hadith of Imam Al-Mahdi. Don't I have to go through some scholar? Don't I have to go through Kulaini? Don't I have to go through some of the scholars? So Kulaini, he narrated the hadith. Then Saduq narrated, then Mufid, then all of these scholars, they were narrators of hadith. So we refer to them to connect us to the Imam.
Hassan says, another question we've got is, why can we not mix and match fatwas from different maraja?
So if someone, this is called tab'id, if someone truly between themselves, they're an expert and they believe, for example, that this scholar is more knowledgeable in this field and this scholar is more knowledgeable in this field, then there wouldn't be a problem to do tab'id. But the problem right now is a lot of people, they want to pick and choose because it's an issue of, oh yeah, this marja says Eid is tomorrow, let me just follow this marja. And then this marja says I could put nail polish on and pray, then let me follow this marja. This marja says I could eat lobster, let me eat. It's some people, if it comes based on what you want, based on your own desires, then that's wrong. But if you truly believe this marja is more knowledgeable in this field, and this marja is more knowledgeable in this field, then you can follow your certainty.
Thank you, Sayyid. We've got another question on, why have we observed a spike in akhbaris in recent years, and how can this issue be resolved?
Why have we observed? Probably because we have, alhamdulillah, access to knowledge, access to scholars, people can debate. So that's why you're seeing more of that. I think there has always been akhbaris, and perhaps because some opinions say that, you know, the usuli system has also gone a little bit too much. Too much reliance on aql, too much reliance on these reason and logic and all of that, and we could just go back to the hadith of the Ahl al-Bayt. We shouldn't make it too complicated. But I think it's always good to have kind of a fair balance where you don't totally reject the ahadith and the akhbar, but also you don't take away the role of the aql and the intellect and kind of analyzing hadith. So for example, when it comes to accepting hadith, you have two systems, two ways that scholars accept hadith. The way of Sayyid al-Khoi, he's very strict. This narrator in hadith is da'if. This narrator of hadith, we don't have any proof that says he is authentic, he's qualified, he's thiqa. I don't accept this hadith. This hadith has no hujjah for me. But then, this is one way. He has taqsim al-ruba'i, meaning you divide the hadith into 4. It's sahih, hasan, da'if, and muwathaq. So then there's another system where they come and they say, listen, I don't just throw out this hadith because there was one person who was kind of weak. Why? I'm going to follow the clues and proofs, and I'm going to see other signs and indicators to see whether this hadith is accepted or not. So for example, if I were to follow the way of being strict when it comes to hadith, this hadith is accepted or this is not accepted because there's one error in it, I can't accept it, I would have to throw out many narrations. I would have to throw out a lot of the narrations in Nahj al-Balagha. I would have to throw out a lot of the du'as that we have, because maybe there's somewhat of a in the sanad, in the narration, it's not the way that you would want it to be in terms of fiqh. Of course, the scholars of usul, they're more strict when it comes to laws of fiqh, but when it comes to like du'a, when it comes to Nahj al-Balagha, when it comes to these issues, they're not as strict. But the akhbari scholars, they say, no, let's just accept all the hadith. Why? Let's come and see clues and indicators whether this is accepted or not. Now, when it comes to dua, when it comes to the sayings of Imam Ali, it's easy to say that. For example, Nahj al-Balagha right now, when I read it, maybe the hadith that is there, it's probably weak. It's probably not strong. But when I read Nahj al-Balagha, I say this has to be the word of Ali ibn Abi Talib, because no one else could speak like this. No one else could talk like this. So this is maslak al-qara'in, meaning I look at other clues and indicators to say, no, this has to be from Imam Ali. Or maybe this hadith is weak, but then there's hundreds of ahadith that are similar to it. They share the same thing, so therefore I accept it. But when it comes to fiqh, here it becomes a little bit more tricky. Scholars like Sayyid al-Khoi, they say, okay, I have to accept the hadith that I believe is authentic. If this one, there's a question mark on it, I'm not going to accept it, even if, for example, other people are following it.
Sensei, thank you so much. You've mentioned today that, and obviously it's apparent to everyone, that there's a plethora of knowledge out there online for people to obviously access. Now, the problem with that is sometimes if people do this studying on their own, they have got the potential to go astray. And so someone has asked the question, what is the harm of solo studying religion? Is there a harm? Can we solo study, or is it important for us to have a mentor when we're studying Islam?
Depends on you as a person. You want a solo study, does that mean like you're going to be listening to lectures? Right now, for example, the Bahath Kharij that is taught in Najaf and taught in Qom, you could watch it online. It's recorded, you could watch it online. If that is what you mean as solo study, then there's nothing wrong with that. You listen to these lectures, you learn from them. But if you want to go and do your own and start from zero, it's really hard. You you need teachers. You need someone to show you the way. Can I go and become, for example, an expert in a particular field, engineering, doctor, medicine, whatever it is, without seeing the teachers? Can I just pick up the book that the medical school students they read and I read it on my own without a teacher? No, you can't. There has to be some form of connection with some scholars.
Habib Said. We've got a question, and I think this question is an extremely important question because it sort of signifies the emphasis on our importance in preparation for Sahib Zaman. And so the question is, what is our role in the West as the youth when it comes to preparing a foundation for Sahib Zaman? And how do we go about this?
So I think we need to do that which the Imam has ordered us. Min afdal a'mal ummati intidar al-faraj. From the best deeds of my ummah is to await the faraj. And what does waiting for the faraj mean? It means that I have to actively wait. I have to see what would the Imam do when he rises. The Imam is going to establish a just state. The Imam is going to spread mercy. The Imam is going to spread love. The Imam is going to basically spread the laws of God. So am I doing that? I have to ask myself, am I doing that? Let me do what I would do if the Imam was here. That's live your life in that way. If the Imam was in front of you, would you pray on time or would you pray late? Would you give your khums and zakat or would you not give it? Would you go to Hajj or would you travel to, somewhere? So here, these are all, ask yourself what you would do if the Imam was here.
That's a beautiful response. I think sometimes we forget that our Imam is living and he's with us. So sometimes we forget that. And I think it's always important for us to remember that the Imam is with us and we should act as if he is with us and present because he is. So it's a phenomenal answer, Habib Said. Thank you so much. Another question we have, how do we go about extinguishing the rivalry we have between followers of different Maraja'iyah?
So this is something that is very shameful that we see taking place right now. I guess it's natural instinct. Some people, they like to create rivalry, but the scholars themselves, they respect one another. I've seen the scholars in the Hawza. They respect one another. They don't do ghibah. They don't talk about one another. We have to remember that we have an Imam. The scholar is yes, with all respect to the scholar, but there's a leader above the scholar, and that is the Imam. There are some people, they forget the Imam, they put the Imam aside and they raise the scholar on the pedestal and they start worshiping the scholar. This is wrong. So we need to have respect for other opinions. This is what ijtihad is. Ijtihad is giving others basically the opportunity to have their own interpretation of the law. They derive the law. So we have to respect different opinions. Yes. Now, if someone is saying something that goes against the aqa'id, against the belief, the main components of the belief, not a historical event or something that happened, then this one, I'm not required to respect this person, but I'm not required to follow this person, but this person is still a human being. They have their opinion. There were individuals who were atheists. They would come and they would sit with the Imam and the Imam would listen to them. They didn't. Today you find two Shias, they treat the other as if they are worse than an atheist. So I think we need to see what the Imams would do, and the Imams, obviously, they teach us to show respect and love and care towards one another, especially scholars. There are so many narrations that talk about the role of the scholars and respecting scholars. So we have to have that.
Thank you so much, Habib Said. I think we're going to leave the session there, inshallah. It's been an extremely enlightening session for myself personally. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been in the office since the morning, and I have looked extremely forward for the session. And
me too.
It has not disappointed, and I hope everyone here has benefited, inshallah. A few closing remarks. This is what Ahlul Bayt Union is. We want to try our best to ensure that so many people within our community are ready to build this community for Sahib Zaman, inshallah. And this is our mission. We've got a goal toward and a objective and a mission towards establishing this community that is ready for the reappearance of Sahib Zaman. So Sayyidina, it has been an absolute honor and privilege to host you today. I cannot thank you enough from a personal level and an organizational level.
May Allah thank you. Keep me in your dua.
Habib Sayyid, your praise as well, please. Inshallah, everyone has benefited. The session has been recorded, and the link will be sent around, inshallah. For those of you who have not signed up to the Seal of the Prophethood course, led by Sayyid Muhammad Kadhim al-Mudarrisi, you are still able to sign up to that course, and inshallah, it's going to be session number 3, and you will be sent session 1 and session 2, inshallah. So just go on to the same website that you signed up to this session for, and you'll be able to follow the steps there to sign up to that course as well, inshallah. I think we can all pray for the hastened reappearance of Sahib Zaman, inshallah. May Allah give us the opportunity to continue serving, continue attending, and continue increasing our knowledge. Inshallah, we will leave it there. My dear friend Sayyid Nada Ali has put the link for the Seal of the Prophet course in the chat, inshallah. Hadha walhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Thank you so much, everyone. May Allah bless you all and keep us all in your praise, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.